343 actually did it. They listened.
Yes! Yes!
343 this week released an article detailing the changes to settings for year 2 of HCS. And in my opinion, this is a W, like just about unanimous W as far as I can tell from the competitive community. If you are a casual player, before you're up in arms, note that majority of these changes are just for the ranked playlist and for competitive. There are some changes that will affect everybody. We're going to get to that, but for the most part, this is a W, at least as far as I can tell. And I know these are just some changes to some settings in Halo. We've wanted this for a while. No big deal. Shyway, Wild Hopium. Like, I get it. I know Halo Infinite needs some work. I know that cheating is the big topic of discussion in competitive right now. Cheating is a real thing in Halo. There's a lot to work on with Infinite, but I think we should count our blessings, count our W's while we get them, right? There's some positives in this article, some forward progress here. So let's read through this, some of the changes and just some of my thoughts on what's at play. Okay, we got some reading to do. Let's get to it. Our aim for year 2 of HCS with regards to map and mode combinations is to refine the list to respond to player and fan feedback, as well as provide a platform for competitive and entertaining matches all year long. This is, I think, the big one, player and fan feedback. Hopefully we see a lot of that throughout the year. So here's the maps and modes. You got Argyle, Empyrean, Aquarius. Argyle, Empyrean, 2 new maps for competitive. They're both Forge maps. They're both just okay, in my opinion. It's not ideal, I'll be honest. I was hoping for, something a little bit more exciting as an addition. No more Bazaar. No more Catalyst as well. I don't personally miss Bazaar too much. Let me know what you guys think of these 2 maps, Bazaar and Catalyst. Catalyst, I kind of miss Catalyst CTF personally. I think it's a really pretty map. I think for viewers watching, it's a good looking map. I thought it was pretty fun. I think pros were, getting used to it towards the end of the season, but for whatever reason, we're going Argyle, Empyrean. I'll get to my thoughts on those in a sec, but Aquarius, Capture the Flag. You got Slayer, Empyrean, Aquarius, Live Fire, Recharge, Streets. We all know that well. King of the Hill, Recharge, Live Fire, Streets. Good to have King back. We had it out of matchmaking for a bit, but I think it's of course back in the rotation. Strongholds, Recharge, Live Fire, Streets. Oddball, Recharge, Live Fire, Streets. We're excited for the additions of Empyrean, the Pit, yes, and Argyle to be played on the main stage. Would be cool to see a little bit of the Pit on the main stage, I think, for sure. So balance updates. This is big. Regarding balance updates, we know the competitive community has shared a lot of critical feedback since launch, as well as since the most recent updates in November and December. We definitely have. Here's what we're working on and what you can expect in the update. So this is ranked and HCS only. Argyle. So they took the shotties off Argyle. No more shotguns. It's sidekicks instead. Personally, I think this plays a lot better, especially just considering how the map's laid out. I'll get to that. No more commando in the base, the bottom of the base. It's 2 BRs now on top and bottom instead. I think this is better considering how strong the commando is. The commando is still on top mid, so there's still 2 commandos on the map, just top mid. Now you got to actually, move up on the map to get access to them. Fusion coils removed. There is, I know, some fun in like the ability to throw and catch a fusion coil, and I think that might have had some novelty maybe one time on the HCS stage, but in general, it's easy. Like, you don't have to work hard for the kills. It's just kind of a cheesy aspect to the map that I'm not going to miss that it's gone. So I feel like the map plays a little better with these changes. Personally, I still don't know how I feel about the map. What do you guys think of Argyle? Let me know in the comments. I've been watching scrims from pros, and right now it's not too hot. Their thoughts on it. It seems like on top of the size of the map, there's a lot of corners on the map. There's a lot of like corner campy play that you can do to get away with, breaking some of these flag runs. It's very difficult to reliably run flags. Thankfully, there's no shotties on the map now. That would be even worse, but it's just not loved yet. I'm seeing a lot of like 0-0, 1-1 games that go to sudden death. My biggest concern with Argyle right now, though, is bugs, and I'm sure 343 is aware. I'm sure you guys have experienced some on this map. The grapple bug specifically is game-breaking, in my opinion. You try to grapple, and it just doesn't come out. Like, I saw it happen on Formal Stream the other day in overtime, and it messed up his opening strat. He didn't get camo, and they lost the game. So, like, little things like that, that's game-breaking if it happens in a tournament. There's also a movement-related bug. I think it's specific to Argyle. It might not be. Let me know, but basically, like, you try to jump, and you, like, jitter and, like, get stuck. So it's like a weird, like, glitchy jump bug. I just saw it happen on Elamite's stream like a couple hours ago. It's happened to me. I think the lift triggers it or something. I don't know. let me know in the comments. But bugs, definitely you don't want to see that on Forge maps. I think this is, one of the kinks to kind of iron out with some of these new Forge maps is, we're seeing a lot of incredible maps built by the community, but probably a big part of the reason why this doesn't transition over to HCS is just performance and all the little unpredictable things that can happen. For Empyrean, the fusion coils are also gone. The scrap cannon, the turrets are gone as well. Not surprising. The controversial thing right now is the rocket launcher still has 4 rockets. What do we think about this in the comments? Empyrean is a much larger map than a map like Streets, for example. I think 4 rockets on Streets would be ridiculous. Maybe you can justify having more firepower in a larger scale map like Empyrean. If somebody dies with it without finishing the rocket, there might be more turnover. There's more ways to kind of avoid them. There's a repulsor on the map, so you can return to sender with the rocket, so maybe that's part of the incentive as well. Honestly, return to sender is pretty hype, and we've never seen that in HCS, so I don't know. Let me know what you think. My biggest issue with Empyrean right now is spawns in Slayer. I think the spawns in Slayer are kind of too much. Like, historically, in Halo 3, static spawns was the thing, right? You all spawn on one side of the map, and you kind of shift around different sides of the map if you're under pressure, if the spawns are blocked. In Infinite, the movement is quick and the BRs are deadly at long range, right? We're shooting like laser beams. So if you are just hammering a team on spawns, they can't escape very easily. It's so easy to control the spawn. There's like a failsafe in the OS. If you cover too many of the spawns, then you can split on OS, but that's like your only like saving grace if a team's doing a good job covering the spawns. I think it might just be too much. It might snowball the game and make the game really one-dimensional. So I don't know. I think maybe just make it dynamic. By the way, Detachment is staying in ranked, but it won't be in HCS, so pros will not be competing on it. The map was pretty controversial, so I think that's fine. This is another reason why it would be nice to have a ranked playlist and an HCS playlist, right? Like just one that's dedicated to strictly competitive settings, and then ranked, you could have Detachment, you could have Bizarre, you could have Catalyst, maybe even Behemoth, right? Like it would be nice to have more ranked playlists that feature more weapons, more maps, more of everything, and then the strict, HCS. But anyway, drop wall, charges reduced from 2 to 1, fusion coils removed, nothing too crazy. These are the bigger tweaks, and these are happening mid-February, so this is coming up soon. The big deal with this is the HCS Major happens in, like right after these changes, basically. So pros are going to see this happen, and then they have to adjust. Kind of a big deal, right? That this is happening kind of last minute, especially this ammo rack update. I think this is the big one, but this is a good one, in my opinion. They really just straight up listened to pro feedback. They said in the ranked arena playlist in HCS, each weapon rack will now be set to red rack, meaning once a weapon is picked up, the rack won't spawn another until the weapon is despawned, which is exactly what we asked for in the video. So the same number of weapons on the map, but when somebody picks one up, only one player possesses it at a time. It doesn't continuously spawn, so there's just an abundance of weapons. I think this is great. Personally, it's going to ensure that there's like more value behind controlling those weapons on the map. You're going to see less of them, so it's not overpowered. It's not going to overtake the importance of the BR, which is kind of your foundation in competitive. So I think this is great. It will definitely change things up a little bit in come tournament play, but it's not just like massive, like so massive of a change that I think it will cause any problems. And note that with these red racks, when a weapon despawns, a new one typically spawns 15 seconds later. They don't actually specify spawn time. I'm just going to assume that for all of these weapons, you pick them up. Once they despawn, 15 seconds later, a new one comes back on the rack. So something to note. This frag grenade change, as far as I can tell, a big W all around on the Halo Reddit, on Twitter. Everybody seems to love this. The damage radius will be reduced. So you really got to aim those frags precisely if you want to make sure you get like the maximum damage. It gives players more room to kind of escape them as well. So it kind of gets rid of any issues with like nade spam, having nades be like overpowering or give you an easier or free kill. I think this is great. I think this is, a W all around. So good to see. Drop weapon mechanics. So I wasn't sure if this had changed. I had unbound drop weapon for a while now, for months. I'm sure some people had too, but they are finally making the change now, mid-February. The speed will be at parity with normal weapon switching. So previously, you drop a weapon and you basically instantaneously switch to your secondary and you can shoot right away, which would give you an advantage. There was a bit of a skill gap to it, and I will in some ways miss it, but overall, it was just way too powerful. So I understand why they went this way. So you drop a weapon now, it's the same as switching weapons. There's no advantage in timing. This one was actually kind of unexpected. For the S7 sniper, the hip fire, there's this slight randomness every time you no-scope it. Even if there's no bloom, there's a tiny bit of randomness. So they're reducing the random error angle when no-scoping. So it was already pretty small I assume it's basically just going to be straight, like perfect. And, as you'd expect when you're no-scoping the snipe. This also would be pretty effective for like an M&K user as well. So something to keep in mind is this thing is going to be very accurate. I assume the bloom is still there though, right? When you fire a shot, the bloom pops in. They didn't mention anything about that. You can YY to reset the bloom on your scope, like switch weapons twice. So I think that mechanic will still be at play, but keep in mind, if you're spamming it, there will be inaccuracy. So again, all of these changes are happening mid-February, right before HCS Charlotte. So this will definitely be talked about at the tournament, how pros are adapting to some of these changes. Like the frag grenade one, I think definitely could be big. The ammo rack update as well. Sniper, not as much. Drop weapon, not at all, but still pretty crazy. Update 3. So this is still being finalized. Not guaranteed, not 100% until they circle back and confirm in February, but the soonest they can release this is Season 3. Now, some of this I think is just unanimous W, is great. Some of this will be probably controversial with the casual community because this affects everybody, not just ranked, not just pros. Footstep audio. In my opinion, audio in this game is loud as hell, and it sounds like it's coming from everywhere. Like they could be 20 meters away, and I hear them like they're right beside me, and it's hard to tell like where they are, like if they're above, below, what area behind. It's just hard to discern their location accurately, and it's just loud no matter where they are, it seems. So I think this is big. Adjusting footstep audio to better suit competitive play. Enemies are now harder to hear at a distance and easier to hear when they are very close. Sounds good to me. Improved accuracy of enemy location based on footstep audio when enemies are above, below, or behind you. So I think this benefits everybody, especially when you consider setting up like flanks or strategic plays or 1v1s, right? 1v1s is super audio dependent. So good to hear. The Mangler. Now, this, I assume, will affect everybody. The changes to it. First, they plan to vault it from competitive in Season 3, so take it off the map temporarily and then reintroduce it later, reworked. What do we think of this? Because the weapon's been nerfed already, right? It was originally a one-shot beatdown. I think it was originally too powerful, considering its role in the sandbox. It was very available. You didn't really have to fight for it, and you got like the power of a shotgun, but ranged as well. So I think it could be reworked again, considering it's also very easy to hit shots with. It's got a lot of bullet magnetism. They could make it slightly harder to aim with, so it's slightly less accurate, make it more like a shotgun. They could make it more like a long-range Magnum, let's say, and maybe make it slightly weaker. Like, I don't know. How would you change Mangler? They're planning on vaulting Sword from competitive and reintroducing it later as well. Undergo fine-tuning before reintroducing it. How would you further change Sword, I'm wondering, because they did already update it, and it's a little bit easier to trade with the weapon. I think in general, the competitive scene just doesn't like playing with and around the Sword just because of how it kind of promotes campy play, or maybe how it works, with the maps that we currently have. I think once again, if we had like a midship where it's more open space and it's more risky to use, maybe that's better. I've heard people say, like, what if you couldn't sprint with the Sword? Would that be better? So you're kind of nerfed in your movement using it? I don't know. Open to ideas on how or if you would change the Sword. The Commando. This is interesting. So slight tuning to reduce effectiveness. We felt the winter update pushed the needle a little too far. Tuning it again to find a sweet spot. Note that originally the Commando was like a 7-shot kill back coming out of like the beta. They retuned it because it was too powerful. They made it more difficult. And then they made it more powerful. And now they're going to make it more difficult again, right? So we're going back and forth on the Commando, and I do feel like it's slightly too easy, like maybe just a slight reduction in aim assist so people can't like hold down the trigger and track as reliably, but maybe keep the headshot effectiveness because that feels satisfying. I don't know. What do you guys think? Spike nades, reducing randomness to alleviate frustration. So we talked about in the previous video how the spikes like bounce out in the environment, randomly hit players far off. I think a reduction here makes sense considering how it just, it can be a big deal for no real work at times. The disruptor. Overall, we're looking to reduce effectiveness and or utility of the weapon in order to find a sweet spot. Interesting. This weapon is kind of a confusing one, right? Because it does have a lot of valuable utility like around the environment, like shooting weapon racks, shooting weapons on the floor, shooting like pads in the middle of like a stronghold, let's say, and shocking players, right? Like that effectiveness, I think, is satisfying and creative. What I find kind of powerful and a little annoying is the damage over time effect that it has when you shoot players, right? You back down from the fight, it's still damaging you, meaning it's still keeping your shields in a state where they can't recharge. So it's like the combination of the extra damage over time, and if you do survive, you're likely to die because you're stuck in one shot for so long. So I don't know if they could find a way to tweak that, but that is also like one of the unique components of the weapon too. So it's a tricky one. What do we think? Pulse Carbine, this one says, will vault from competitive, will explore a rework in the future. So it sounds like they're going to remove it in Season 3, and it might take a while to come back from competitive. And I kind of understand. I do feel like this weapon is, on top of just not being skillful, it's like not very interesting. I don't know. You point and shoot, and it homes like a 4-burst shot onto the enemy that completely rips the shields. Like, I miss the original carbine, right? Like the green laser beam that's like laser accurate. That is fun to use, in my opinion. It'd be cool if like the Pulse Carbine could be more of a precision weapon, but maybe still retain some of this like burst homing shot thing, or I don't know. Like, what would you do with this gun, right? Like, is there a rework that would be satisfying for competitive play, but still individualize the weapon in a way that like everybody enjoys? I feel like the Pulse weapons in Halo have always been like not interesting. Like the Pulse Repeater, like who honestly uses that Pulse Repeater gun and genuinely enjoys it, whether you're playing campaign or playing like multiplayer? Like I just drop it on the floor. Like I don't touch that thing. The Plasma Pistol, not unexpected. I think slight retuning to reduce effectiveness in order to find the sweet spot. I think with the homing shot specifically, it's just a little too much with the tracking. Like, I find that gun intimidating, even at long ranges. The tracking is so effective. I'll be at like sniper range, and I'm ducking behind cover trying to get away from it, because you never know when it's gonna track and hit you even from far off. So a little bit too much. And then ammo reduction, and I think this is big. They really hit the right weapons too. Some of the ones that are particularly powerful right now, the Heatwave, Stalker, Bulldog, and Shock Rifle, really kind of run the game, considering that they spawn 15 seconds after they despawn. So a slight reduction in ammo, I think, with the Shock Rifle as well, will be appreciated. 8 shots, I think, is a better sweet spot with this gun. It's especially in a pro's hands. They're just taking faces left and right. So slight reduction in effectiveness. You'll see it on the rack again, and then other teams can pick it up. What I'm most looking forward to, though, is the new additions in Season 3, the Shroud Screen and the Bandit. Should be pretty interesting. The Shroud Screen, of course, like an orb that you can drop down. Good for objectives, I would assume. You can't see through it, whether you're on the outside or on the inside of it, but you can shoot bullets through it. So could create some interesting dynamics, and I'm curious to see how it shapes the meta on like where players shoot it in the environment. It's a full like globe orb, so you can shoot it like up in the air and have like the bottom of it cover you, but then like I don't know what kind of play you could make with it, but it could be interesting. So we'll see. I'm sure there'll be like certain spots that you fire it that are like meta. And then you got the Bandit. And the Bandit is the closest that we've seen to a DMR. I think it's a 5-shot kill. The fire rate looks a little fast. It's got bloom, I think, as far as I can tell from like the leaks. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It doesn't have a scope, which I actually like, meaning you can't just like cross map with it, or at least it doesn't seem to be designed that way. But that also means it's got like the halfway aim down sight scope, and that doesn't de-scope. So there's a power in that too. Either way, it's interesting. I think a 5-shot DMR would be a huge plus for the sandbox, for the competitive community, for the M&K community as well. Just having something that's very consistent, very reliable, and very skillful. Hopefully we get that and we like it. And that's essentially it. It's not a lot, definitely, especially considering Season 3 is like months away. And I'm sure, like, I would love to see a lot more content. I would love to see more maps in HCS. I would love to see more new Forge maps that are interesting and exciting, like brought in. I want to see dev maps. Like, where's Plaza? They're working on Plaza as well. So, there's a lot to be desired for sure. But I think the biggest W with all of this is really just the listening to feedback and the fact that we are being given what we've asked for. The community has collectively come together, said, we want these changes. The changes are happening. And I think that's an important precedent for 343 to set, to ensure that there's a strong foundation, a community that supports the game, likes what they play. And I think that creates a positive word of mouth. And, hopefully things start to turn, positively for Infinite. We got a ways to go. Anyway, that's it for this one. What do you guys think of the update? Is it a W? How would you change some of these weapons? Are you looking forward to Charlotte? I know we've got all these new teams and rosters. I do want to make a video once they're all kind of finalized. I know we got scrims happening. If you're not H4F, if you're not watching Optic, you better start doing it, because it's honestly pretty entertaining to see where everybody stacks up right now. I know cheating is a huge issue in Halo Infinite right now. I didn't realize how prevalent online cheating was in Infinite. So there's a lot of different things we can tackle here and stuff to, look into in the future. But in the meantime, hopefully you guys are enjoying the videos. If you like the content, make sure to like and sub. Check out my other stuff. I'll see you soon. Good luck on the way.